Okay, girls, this is the last little subtopic on cellular signals. It's a little bit of a kind of personal topic for a lot of people. We're going to be talking about a few diseases. So if at any stage that you feel that you're going to struggle with it, then you can just pause and come back to it later. Unfortunately, we will be talking about cancer. So I'm just giving you a little bit of a warning that this is coming. We're going to be talking about some of the reasons why cancer actually occurs and what it can be caused by. On the flip side, if you think about it this way, maybe it's something that you become really passionate about and that you want to go into research as to how we can prevent these things from happening. So the last dot point that's part of this subtopic of cellular signals is talking about malfunctions in apoptosis that result in deviant cell behavior leading to diseases including cancer. Now, because they specifically mention cancer, then you must understand how malfunctions in apoptosis affect cancer. But other than that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a broad overview of what other diseases can be caused by malfunctions in apoptosis. So to begin with, let's just kind of refresh ourselves, and that isn't refreshing for you. So let's try again. Okay, let's go out and back in again. That's better. So what we're looking at with apoptosis is this controlled cell death. Yeah, it's not necrosis, which is another word you might come across in your readings. Necrosis is uncontrolled cell death, when a cell kind of like leaches out and all of its toxins and all of the nasty things that are inside it just kind of leak into the interstitial fluid, which means that they can affect other cells. So necrosis is what you often find in a disease like gangrene. And if you don't know what gangrene is, just stop and have a quick look, but I'm warning you, it's a bit gross. But apoptosis is a normal part of cell life. Cells have to be created, and then at some stage cells have to pass away or die. Really quickly to go over our steps again, what you see is that the cell begins to, the cell begins to shrink in the middle here that's undergoing apoptosis. You get a lot of condensation, you get the cytoskeleton breaking down. If I can write it like that, yep. Cytoskeleton, then you end up with blebbing, which you can't really see here, but blebbing's that. The nucleus breaks down, all the organelles break down, and eventually you get this phagocytosis by surrounding cells. So if you're not sure on what I'm saying here, then you need to stop and you need to go back and revise apoptosis. So we're in your notes on page 10 at the moment, and the notes that go through the steps in apoptosis are on page 7. Okay, so we need to think about what happens when apoptosis goes wrong. And again, I'm just going to have a little bit of a trigger warning, is that the following slides are going to discuss cancer and they're going to discuss other degenerative disorders. I think part of the way I look at it is that knowledge is power. If we understand the way these things work, then maybe we can come up with a solution for them. So what causes cancer? The first thing is that it's just cells that divide too rapidly. So they're just kind of going gangbusters, dividing over and over again. Thinking about apoptosis is that we're going to have little apoptosis. If they're dividing more and more and not dying, then there might be something wrong with apoptosis. They could be cells that contain damaged or mutated DNA, and these all contribute to this cells dividing more rapidly. The other thing that they could be is they could be cells that cause damage to nearby healthy cells. Yeah? By growing bigger, by not dying, is that they can end up damaging nearby healthy cells. And this bit here, this is what usually causes the symptoms of cancer. So it's all very well and good to say that cells divide too rapidly, yeah? But that doesn't cause symptoms of cancer. You've just got too many cells. It might cause one symptom. It might cause a lump to be formed. This is more of a cause. Yeah, a cause of cancer is something that has damaged or mutated DNA. And then the problem is when these lumps of cells start to push in and start to damage the other cells around them. When they do that, that's when you might see systems break down or organs break down. People start to feel very lethargic and sick because things aren't working properly in their body. So cancer is just a disorder or a disease where you've got an uncontrolled cell division. Yeah, uncontrolled cell division. So here is your normal cell on the left here, and that's the pink one. Normally you get unfixable DNA damage, so there might be a mutagen that's done that to it. So for example, you go out in the sun and the UV damages the DNA in your cells. So what happens is your mitochondrial pathway would detect that DNA damage. I'm linking us back to the previous one. So normally the mitochondria detects the damage, and it sends signals to activate the caspase cascade, and you get apoptosis starting. However, in a cancer cell, that mutation exists, but no apoptosis is triggered. So what you get is that cell just continues to divide. So cancer cells can do a couple of things. They can either produce chemicals that block the intrinsic pathway. So they stop the mitochondria from detecting something wrong, from detecting failure. As a result, you get too little apoptosis. Another thing is you might get a decrease in production of these pro-apoptotic proteins. So this is one of those like kind of negative positive scenarios. So a pro-apoptotic protein is one that encourages or starts apoptosis. So if you don't have as many of those, then you cannot encourage or start apoptosis. As a result, you've got too little apoptosis. The other thing with cancer is sometimes you've got defective death receptors. If you get defective death receptors, that means no apoptosis triggered extrinsically. And if that happens, your overall takeaway here is cancer can be caused by too little apoptosis. Okay, so this is your overall takeaway in a blue box on your notes, that cancer can be caused by too little apoptosis. Okay. There are some other illnesses. Now, these ones cannot be examined without them giving you information about them, but they are very good questions to ask about when they tell you part of the scenario. So one of the diseases that we talk about here is hemolytic anemia. So hemolysis means that your red blood cells burst. Okay, so as a result, what it's caused by is it's a failure of apoptosis in our immune cells, in faulty immune cells, and they end up attacking our red blood cells. When that happens, your red blood cells burst. When your red blood cells burst, that means you can't carry as much oxygen around your body, so you end up feeling anemic. So some of you may have already been diagnosed with anemia. It wouldn't be hemolytic anemia, unlikely. It's probably one caused by an iron deficiency, and they generally tell you to take iron supplements or eat more spinach, eat more red meat, so on, to get your anemia under control. But anemia is when you get tired because you've got less red blood cells, so you can't carry as much oxygen around your body. Not as much oxygen means not as much ETC. If you don't get much ETC happening in cellular respiration, you end up with a massive deficiency in ATP. Another one here is rheumatoid arthritis. Some of you might have sore joints. I doubt it at your age. It's very unlikely. It's more of an old person disorder, but it can happen in people younger. And it's where you get this buildup of the synovial membrane is what's written here. So there's this thing that comes around your joints, and that's called the synovial membrane. And if it gets thickened because there's no apoptosis occurring or little apoptosis occurring, then what that means is that it's not flexible. And if it's not flexible, every time you bend your fingers, that is going to kind of crack and move around. It's going to be painful. So generally they get painful joints with rheumatoid arthritis. The last one we're talking about here is herpes. Now, herpes is a virally caused disease. But what happens is the virus releases a chemical that blocks apoptosis. Yeah? So it means that it can end up hiding in a cell for a really long period of time. So the symptoms of herpes aren't caused by too little apoptosis, but we often talk about herpes being a disease that once you've got it, you can't get rid of it for life. And what we think is happening is that the virus is actually communicating with the cell and releasing chemicals that stops the cell that's hiding the virus from dying. So it's just like one little cell that's hiding this herpes virus. All it takes is for your immune system to be a little bit down because you might be feeling tired, you might not be eating well, and then all of a sudden, bang, you end up with a cold sore. So this here is your cold sore. There are also some diseases that are caused by too much apoptosis, and I've just realized that you haven't seen any of my annotations because this lovely screencast has decided not to work again. So let's just see if we can get it to work again. Here we go. So we've got this lovely illness caused by too little apoptosis. This is going to do. Now, so herpes, these are your cold sores, is what I wrote here. So there are also some illnesses caused by too much apoptosis. This is a really interesting picture of looking at a healthy brain on the left here and looking at a brain with Alzheimer's disease. So Alzheimer's disease is a disease of memory. You might have known someone that has Alzheimer's disease, and we're starting to do more and more research into it because it's just such a horrible problem to have. And one of the theories is that it's an increase in apoptosis in your brain. So if you get an increase in apoptosis in your brain, you're just going to lose brain cells. If you lose brain cells, it's no wonder that your memory starts to disappear. Another disease that we think might be caused by too much apoptosis, and all of this is developing research at the moment, is also Parkinson's disease. So Parkinson's disease is the disease that Michael J. Fox has, and it often causes shaking. And we think that there might be a mutation in the gene coding for proteins that inhibit apoptosis. So this is a really good exam question. So normally you get, you've got a gene that produces a pro-apoptosis protein. I haven't spelled that right, yeah? You get what I mean. So pro-apoptosis protein. So what they're saying with Parkinson's is that maybe there's a mutation in this gene. If there's a mutation in this gene, then we're not going to produce that pro-apoptosis protein. And so therefore, the result is lots of apoptosis. Oh, sorry, it's not a pro-apoptosis protein. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Let's try that one more time. We're going to start at the beginning. So we've got a gene that codes for an inhibitor. This is going to be much easier. And that encourages or stops apoptosis. Yeah? So you get less apoptosis normally. Now, if you mutate that gene, then you're not going to produce the inhibitor. So then this increases. And that's why you get Parkinson's. It's one of the reasons why we now think that you can get Parkinson's disease. So that's my little summary on different types of illnesses caused by apoptosis. So we've finished page 10 now, and then you're going to go on to your melanoma activity, which has got its own set of videos.